All right, let's jump back to the top of the press conference with Ran Carthon. Before we asked any questions, he gave an introduction, a basic rundown of what happened, and then he went into his and Vrabel's relationship, acknowledged the rumors over the past couple of months about them and how they operate, and gave a pretty interesting answer. Let's listen.
First and foremost, I want to thank everybody for being here this afternoon. Obviously with the news this morning, Miss Amy informed Coach Vrabes that he would no longer be the head coach here. First and foremost, I want to thank Vrabes for what he's done here the last 6 years, particularly the time that we've spent together. I want to thank Jen and Carter and Tyler for their sacrifices, for allowing him to put in the time that he put in here while here as our head coach. I also want to say, I know there's been a lot of speculation over the last, 2-3 months or whatever it's been about the nature of Mike and I's relationship. I will say that Mike and I, we've never had any issue versus whether it's personal or professional. We worked well together and had a good relationship. We were in lockstep. So I want to finally come out and, dispel that. And, I wish Vrabes, nothing but the best. Consider him a friend. And I feel like we'll be that way moving forward. And so.
Interesting. In lockstep with Mike Vrabel. Never any issues with Mike Vrabel. They worked well together. Okay. All right, let's keep that in mind. Let's listen to the next couple of clips. Here's a pair of clips about him talking more about his relationship with Ran Carthon or with Mike Vrabel, how they worked together and what their daily routine looked like. Let's listen to these two.
Like I said back in I think it was my press conference, our football foundations are generally the same in where he cut his teeth and how I was raised to see the game of football. Realistically, it's only so many ways that you can play the game of football, only so many different schemes. Like I said, our visions were aligned. We saw it a lot the same, and we worked well together. So the decision that we made was unanimous. Mike and I, we speak every morning, whether I come to his office or he comes to my office, and we talk about the task in hand for the day. When we got to the point of making the move from Ryan, at that time when we made the initial switch, Ryan was injured. And that was about, now we get to see what Levis can do. And Levis went out and he played well. I think had everybody, in this room and our fan base excited about what was to come. And so we decided to make the decision to, move forward and see what that's going to look like in the future in his development.
So they were collaborating, working well together, considered him a friend. Okay, keep all those things in mind. One more clip, and I have some thoughts on all of these. One more thing he had to say about Mike Vrabel and about how this year went. Went into some detail about some injuries that hindered this team's success.
I think that part, it's a lot of moving parts, to the game of football. And there's no secret, we've dealt with a lot of injuries here, over the last, 3 seasons or whatever it is. And, we're having to mix and match pieces, on a week-to-week basis. And it makes it hard. It makes it hard for any organization, to do that. So, we have a lot of work ahead of us of trying to, figure this whole thing out and how we can keep, our key guys out there on the field and keep them available. But it was just one of those things. It wasn't we weren't aligned or it didn't work. It's really hard when you take the field. I think we took the field Sunday with 9 starters out. And we were able to come away with a victory. But if you look over the last couple of weeks, look how many starters that we've had out due to injuries, and it's just hard. It's hard to win football games in the National Football League as is with a healthy roster. It's just it becomes even harder, when you don't have all your key guys.
So that's a lot about how he and Vrabel had a good relationship. They were collaborating. They were talking to each other in each other's office every morning. They didn't ever have any interpersonal issues. He considers him a friend. Their visions aligned on what this team was going to be, what it should be. And then at the end, that last clip, he sounded to me like he gave a bunch of reasons why Mike Vrabel shouldn't have been fired. Sounded to me like he's talking about how the injuries really set this team back. And when you've got 9 starters out in week 17, week 18, it's tough, like a bunch of things. And I was talking with Paul Kaharski and Sam Phelan in the media workroom after this, and Paul says, "Oh man, this guy summed it up perfectly." I go, show me the tweet. Here's the tweet. So shout out to somebody I don't know on Twitter, but really well done summarizing all this. At James R. Brown said, and I couldn't say it better myself, so there were no issues with collaboration or executing a shared vision. Player development was encouraging, and it would have been difficult for any coach to win given all the injuries. So why was Mike Vrabel fired? Because that seems to directly contradict what Amy Adams Strunk said was the reason why she fired Mike Vrabel. Sure as heck sounds like the GM of this team doesn't see a great reason for why Mike Vrabel should be fired. If he does, he sure didn't share it. In fact, he shared a lot of reasons why he probably shouldn't have been fired. Our buddy Mike Herndon on Twitter talking about how Ran Carthon was saying that he and Vrabel were in lockstep, while Amy Adams Strunk's very first line of her statement said, quote, I believe the team's best position for sustained success will be those who empower an aligned and collaborative team across all football functions, end quote. Listing that as a reason why they were firing their head coach. Saying that a team empowering aligned and collaborative team efforts are best for sustaining success in the NFL, implying Mike Vrabel was a roadblock to that. He was a hindrance to that. He was a problem for them trying to reach that shared goal. Yet Ran Carthon comes out and talks to us about how he and Vrabel were in lockstep. They were buddies. They worked well together. There were a lot of reasons why it would have been difficult for any coach to win in the circumstances. Corey Curtis over at local news station News 2, I believe, was in there, and he tweeted out another, I think, poignant thought. So if it wasn't Carthon's decision to fire Vrabel, because he did come out and say that, by the way, that Carthon did not have any say in the decision to fire Mike Vrabel. He was not in the room when Amy Adams Strunk told him that or talked to Mike Vrabel. He was just told by Amy the decision. It was not on his accord. It was not with his input. If it wasn't his decision to fire Vrabel, they got along great. The season wasn't a failure, and you can't say what they're looking for in a new head coach. Why exactly was he the one out here? Again, why was Ran Carthon the one who had to come out here and be the person to field the questions that Amy Adams Strunk begged? She begged all these questions. She's the one that did these things, potentially franchise-altering moves. She's not speaking out. I mean, again, I'm not saying she won't. Maybe she will, and I will praise her when and if she does it. I'll be happy when and if she does it, and I hope whoever gets to ask her questions asks some of the same questions we had to ask of Ran Carthon tonight, because they weren't fair of us to ask him, because they were questions that should have been asked to the person that made the decision, and Ran was not that person. The person was Amy. Okay, next clip. I asked Ran Carthon, this was one of my questions, because earlier in the press conference, it caught my ear, an answer to somebody else's question, asking about why they fired Mike Vrabel. Ran said that ultimately the reason why they did it was all about Amy's vision and wanting to best situate themselves as a team, as an organization, as a franchise, to meet that vision for the team, for the organization. So I asked him, what was it about Mike Vrabel that wasn't compatible with Amy's vision, with y'all's vision? What about Mike wasn't going to work for that to happen? And he didn't give much of an answer. We can play the clip, but here's what he had to say.
Organization, not the team, the vision for her organization and how she wants things structured for that. Like I said, Miss Amy's, she's made her statement and she's clarified her reasons, and we're here to support her.
And again, I'm not mad at, he gave the answer he had to give, which was not an answer, which was, I'm not answering this question, right? He said what he had to say by choosing to say, well, it's not about the team's vision. It's about the organization's vision. Okay, Rant. Okay, fine. The question still stands. What was it about the organization's vision that Amy has in mind that Mike Vrabel was a hindrance to? Why was he not compatible with the organization or the team's vision? Didn't want to answer that question, naturally. Okay, let's listen to the next clip. This next one. Talking about the shared long-term vision, and my buddy Sam Phelan over at A to Z asked this question, trying to essentially get down to the bottom of, okay, before this past season, were Mike Vrabel and Ran Carthon on the same page about what this team needs to be going forward? Was there a debate between Ran Carthon wanting to kind of tear down fully, get it down to this, like, let's ship off some aging pieces that are worth something, get some draft picks, Ryan Tannehill, trade him. Derrick Henry, trade him. Kevin Byard, trade him. Janico Autry, go ahead and trade him. Let's get some draft capital and some young guys up in here, and let's do a full rebuild. And then, as speculated, Mike Vrabel more along the lines of let's keep those guys. Let's add like a D-Hop kind of a win now as we rebuild strategy, which is what they ultimately went with, which is what ultimately won out in that front office, in that organization. And so trying to answer that question, and I found it funny how Rand's answer was, yeah, we were on the same page about the vision for this roster, vision for this team. Me and Mike Vrabel were. And now when we get a new coach, that vision, there might be a significant pivot. It might change dramatically, which I don't think is actually inconsistent. What that tells me is, okay, so Amy took the vision you guys had and has fully shot it down, has said, no, we're going to do this differently. Here's the clip.
You always, when you're acquiring specifically younger guys, draft guys and some young free agents, it's a long-term vision. We talk a lot about it in the draft room of, hey, this guy may not be ready year one, so that's a part of it. And depending on the scheme of the next head coach, things could pivot, drastically, and we could have a retool of the roster, which is, going to take some work. And so, we'll address that, when we get there.
Okay, so the Titans have to hire a new coach now. So this next clip is asking Ran Carthon, who are you going to be the person in charge of the search for a head coach? You're the GM of this team. Are you going to be heading up that search? Is it going to be your call? Here's what Ran Carthon had to say.
No, we, talked about this earlier. I will be one of the parts of it. And
one of the parts.
Be, areas in which, I'll take more of an out front approach. But again, this is about the head coach. This is about the locker room, but this is about the organization. So it'll be, a few of us in there. I know there are a couple candidates that, I have, out there that'll be available. I have relationships with, and I want to be able to run an unbiased,
Bobby Slick,
process. And so that's going to require more people to be, in the room and a part of the process.
Okay. A couple more clips here before we dive into, I'm just trying to get these out of the way, set a framework for what we're talking about here and what I came away from this press conference thinking with a couple more clips. The other question that I got in, because it was a very busy press room, a lot of questions. I'm surprised I got two words in edgewise,
it was a jungle out there. Everybody
sure was.
Everybody was fighting for it.
Well, about 10 seconds in, the president of media relations, Robbie Boren, was having to tell people like, guys, we got time. We've got plenty of time. Everybody's gonna get their question in. We don't need to fight over, and certain members are better about this than others. Okay, but I did get two questions in, and my second one was, he was at, and this is another clarification question. Actually, both of these questions I came up with on the fly because I was wanting to hear him clarify on some previous answers he gave. He essentially said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but in a previous answer, he said that we're gonna, he was being pressed on what's the actual vision, like define the vision, and he said we're gonna define that vision once we get a head coach, which struck me as you're gonna define the vision. So I said, Mr. Carthon, I said Ran. Just want to clarify, is the vision going to be set before you do your coaching search and so allowing it to inform who you hire, which I think is good process, or is this going to be something where you guys search for a coach, get that coach, and then you set the vision, which I think is backwards and bad process? And he answered and essentially said that the vision is already, like he clarified, the vision's already set. We're doing that. So that's good. Good process, right? Vision's already set. We're going to have that and let that inform who we hire at coach. But bad news, we can't tell you the vision because you decide. Here's the clip.
Vision defined. We have it defined, and we've had, I've been on the phone ever since, the decision was made, and it's obviously been a lot going on and it's been hectic, but the vision is defined. It's just, it'll be a time for us to roll that out.
And then a follow-up question. Why exactly can you not tell us the vision now? What's the reason? Here's that clip.
It's not the time. It's not the time to share that vision today. Because I think as we go through this process, we need to make sure that we have the right person aligned with that, and why we hired that person will fit that vision.
Okay. That was the weirdest part of the whole press conference to me. So here's my general takeaway, and we are now done with clips. We're going to dive into some thoughts on what the takeaways here are and what happened. The general